Good morning. I know with the harshness of winter here in San Diego, how winter has just begun and we're already so looking forward to spring. When finally we can awaken and not find the tiniest bit of frost on our cars. This morning I thought I saw frost. I realized it was just a good amount of dew on my car, and I was so thankful. So thankful. But some of you grew up in places where it actually does get cold and there actually is snow. I heard some of you went to places where it was bitter cold for Christmas. I did not. My sister came in from Indiana and surprised. It was great. She surprised our kids. They actually were still asleep when I brought them back from the airport. And so we went from room to room and woke up each kid with my niece, nephew, and my sister. But it was really cold in Indiana, where they came from, and my sister at night is sleeping in the room with the window open. Even though it's 45 degrees at night, she's like, it just feels so nice. I'm like, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel so nice? But we had a really enjoyable time. It's the first Christmas I've spent with my niece and nephew, I think, ever. And that was nice. And it's the first Christmas I'd spent with my sister in, oh man, I can't even, at least 2.5 decades. You guys thought I was going to say 2.5 years, no, 2.5 decades. I don't look like I could even be 2.5 decades old, let alone miss that many Christmases. But it was nice to have family. I hope you all also enjoyed your time as well. But we do look forward to things that are new. When I grew up in Ohio and it was winter time, snow was fun for a while. The younger I was, the more fun it was. But as you get older, you think, I'd really like the snow to go away and like to see some things growing out of the ground again. Like to see leaves come back on the trees and flowers start to bloom again. We look forward to something new and fresh, maybe not new pollen, but everything else. Really look forward to it. How many of you enjoy new things? You like to go out, you like to have new experiences. Some of you might be wearing some new things right now. We always make our children, actually they came up with the term themselves, but they say we make them marinate their gifts. We don't let them wear them right away. We got a new pair of shoes, can I wear them? No. Wait a little bit. Oh, but they're brand new and they're so cool. Let them marinate. That's what they say. You're going to make me marinate or can I wear them? So my son asked me, can I wear my new tennis shoes? And I said, yeah, they don't have to marinate. You can wear them. Some of you had clothes on so new, the tags were still on your clothes when you walked in this morning. I won't tell you who that was, but that is a real story. We like new things. Actually, when we experience new things and we have new things, from a biopsychological point of view, we're actually release dopamine into our brains, and we love this new experience. You feel a little bit of a high because that is what your brain produces, dopamine. It makes you feel good. When you experience new things, or you get new things, or you give new things, there's something about having something new and fresh that's exciting. We love it. We like to have new experiences, travel places, go to places you've never been before, or go to places that you love so much, but years have gone by and you're so excited to grab your passport and go back, right? And relive that experience, or go see that new thing that you've never seen before. Or maybe you go someplace new and you get to eat something new. I try to find foods that I don't typically eat. I mean, I've eaten corn before, but I don't normally season it like that. I grew up in Ohio. Butter, salt, that's all you need. Good ear of corn. Don't need all the spices and whatnot. I don't know if you've ever had Mexican corn. I know some of you obviously have. You layer it with mayonnaise and put chilito on it, and it's so delicioso, right? And not for me. I don't like that. But some people really enjoy it. Or have you ever had peaches mixed with rice? I've never done that, but I found that image and thought, that's new. Something my son and I will do when it's just us. We will go try a new restaurant. We don't care where it is or what it is. We just want to go somewhere and try something we've never tried before. And typically, mom and sisters aren't quite down to try things without reading all the reviews first, but we want to do something new, something fresh, something exciting, so we'll go out, let's go try that place. And I'm not joking, we're always amazed by it. That's why we keep doing it, because we haven't struck out yet. We love experiencing new things. Imagine being the people of God. And for centuries, you're being held captive in a land that's not your own. In fact, it's not just not your land, you don't even have a land. There's no place for you to go back to because you don't have a place you've ever been. The only place you've ever been is in Egypt, in slavery. And then some upstart shows up, starts causing trouble, starts talking about this new place that God's going to bring you if you'll just trust him. And you can imagine how difficult that must have been. But after they see all the signs and the wonders and the plagues and the water turned to blood, I always want to say the water turned to wine there. I don't know why. The water turned to blood. The sky turned dark as night. You start to get a little excited that maybe this new thing is actually going to happen. Right? You can imagine almost giddy. If you read the story, you know they're not necessarily giddy, but there had to have been some people who were really excited about this because you're finally free and you're finally on your way. And yeah, it took forever to get there, but you got there. And you're standing at the banks of the promised land, this land that God had promised to Abraham, and Abraham got to live there for a little while, but there's a famine. His descendants get taken to Egypt. They're there in slavery. Moses brings you out. You're on the edge of returning to this land that you've never ever been to. A land where your nation never really established itself. And Moses is there at the edge of the land. He's old. He's about to die. And he's telling you about this new place. Imagine how exciting that had to have been. You're at the edge of the Jordan. You're just antsy to cross. You want to get across, and Moses says, I have a sermon to preach first. It's called the book of Deuteronomy. I have a sermon to preach before we go. Oh, here he goes. He's going to recite everything. Everything, Moses? I'm going to recite everything. You just sit there. Oh, man. And he tells them in chapter 6, he says, these are the commands, the decrees, and laws, the Lord your God. Just so you know, I'm not going to recite them all, okay? Just a few verses of chapter 6, and that's it. These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. He says, we're going to go into this new place. Yes, it's exciting. We're going to get there. There's going to be houses you didn't build. There's going to be vineyards you didn't plant. There's going to be crops growing that you didn't plant. You're going to harvest those things. You're going to live in those houses. It's going to be great. But remember who we are. As we go into this new place, remember what God's called us to be faithful. He says, I'm going to give you some commands, and if you're thinking properly, you know that the 10 Commandments are coming. Do these things that you can enjoy a long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in a land flowing with milk and honey. Just the description of that land, right? Just this land, it's hard to picture it because we don't really think of milk and honey as these things that we want to have flowing, right? Usually it requires a lot of cleanup. But you're going to walk into this land that's abundant, full of blessings, every need secured. You're going to walk in and it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. I'm going to bring you into this new place. It's going to be incredible. You're going to love it so much. Just be faithful to the God that brought you here. That's all you have to do. He's going to give them the 10 Commandments, but when you read ahead, you read in the New Testament, you realize the 10 Commandments, there's really 2 commandments in the 10 Commandments. The first one is to love God, and the other one is to love your neighbor. The first 4 all pertain to God. The last 6 all pertain to neighbor. And you guys already know neighbor means everyone, not just the people you like. Moses says, just be faithful to that, and you're going to live in this land. It's going to go well with you. But if we know the story, we know they kind of head a wrong direction. No longer colorful, no longer this bright and glorious future. They have instead this kind of dark, gray and black and white type of vision of what's coming. They lived in a land for a few hundred years, but it didn't take long. It didn't take long until the Assyrians took over the north, and it didn't take long after that for the Babylonians to take over everything. And off they go. Off they go back into a land of captivity. It's not Egypt this time, it's Babylon, but it's in their mind, it's the same thing. Here we go again. Here we go again. And Jeremiah, for those of you in my Sunday morning class, you know, are these all going to be from Deuteronomy and Jeremiah? Yes, they are, except for one passage. Yes, they are. I would apologize, but I don't want to. All right. Jeremiah comes and says, you've been unfaithful. You have not loved God, and you have not loved neighbor. You've put idols before God, and when you put idols before God, you put their needs and their desires of these idols before the people around you, and so you have been unfair to the people around you. You've been unrighteous to the people around you. Therefore, you're going into captivity. You've forgotten who you were. You've forgotten what God's called you to. And Babylon is a wake-up call to remember who God has asked you to be. But Jeremiah, he's a big downer if you've ever read Jeremiah. He's mostly down. He has a few chapters that are up, which we're almost to in the class. If you don't go to my class, you're only getting the upside. This is it. Jeremiah chapter 29, he has 4 chapters of upside in Jeremiah. The rest of it's all, we're all going to die. There, if you want a good summary, that's it. You worship idols, we're all going to die. There's a little bit of hope here. That's it. All right. This is what the Lord says. When 70 years are completed for Babylon, I will come to you and fulfill my good promise to bring you back to this place. Something strikes me here. When they came out of Egypt, they were going to a new place, a place they had never been before, a place that was promised to them, but they never actually got to be fruitful and multiply in that place. They finally get there, they're fruitful, they multiply, they fill the land, and yet they get removed, and Jeremiah says, now I'm going to take you back to this place. You see, sometimes we want something new, right? We're thinking about new year, I got new goals and new this. Sometimes the new thing you want is the old thing that God promised. Does that make sense? He doesn't say, I'm going to bring you to a whole new place that you've never been to before. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be brand new. No, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to take you back to the place I promised you originally. It's an old place, but it's where you're supposed to be. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. This is everyone's favorite verse. You'll see this. You'll see vandal Christians write this on bathroom walls and etch it with a knife and a table. Jeremiah 29:11, right? And we think about it like, that means God has these plans for this future, this place I've never been before. He's got these things I've never imagined before. But actually in Jeremiah, he's saying, no. You've imagined it. You actually used to live there. Or in this case, you're living there right now. You haven't been taken to exile just yet. He said, I know the plans I have for you. They're the plans I've always had for you. Sometimes we get so high on the new thing, we forget what God has called us to as a very old thing. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future right here. You don't need to grab your passport and travel across the world. You don't need to get on the next flight into outer space, which if you have about $1 million, you could do. You may not actually get to ride on that ride, but you will have to pay $1 million. You don't need to do all that. Right here. Right where you're at. I have plans to prosper you, the plans I've always had. It's nothing new. But if you're faithful, you'll get to experience it again. I know the plans I have for you. I'm sorry if that ruins your favorite Bible verse. And again, I would apologize for that. But I don't want to. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me. And I will listen to you. Much of Jeremiah is Jeremiah telling the people to go ahead and pray to God, but he's not going to listen to you. But it's not because God doesn't want to listen to you. He says, but when you love God and you love neighbor, you are being faithful to me. So call on me, and I will listen. I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I know the plans I have for you. They're old plans. Start the new year with old goals. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord. And I will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. God's telling them, I'm not going to bring you anywhere new, but you're still going to love it. You're still going to love it. And so they have an exodus from Babylon. Right? We always imagine the word exodus with Egypt, but in Jeremiah actually says, from now on, when you think of the word Exodus, you're going to think of Babylon, not Egypt. That's how incredible it's going to be. And so they go back to an old place. He doesn't give them a new promised land, he gives them the old promised land. It's almost as if to say, don't get so infatuated with the new that you forget the old important thing you were called to. Often we desire the new when we should desire the old. And I'm not talking about the age, although I want to be old one day too. As you know, just by looking, I'm not there yet. But I want to grow old. Maybe one day I'll be lucky and all my hair will fall out. We get so infatuated with the new, that new thing, that shiny thing, that we forget that we're supposed to be about the old thing that God has always called us to. It's not new and shiny, it's old and shiny. Jesus, as he's washing the disciples' feet, he says that I have a new command. And part of me wonders, and this is just me, and I'm just doing a little conjecturing here, but I wonder if his disciples thought, a new command. Yes, finally. Something brand new, something we've never heard or seen before. Finally, something new and fresh and exciting. But as he's washing their feet, it says that as he washes their feet, he's showing them the full extent of his love. As he's taking the position, the lowest position of any servant in that place. And Jesus assumes that position and washes their feet, shows the full extent of his love, and then says, hey, I have a new command for you. A new command I give you. Love one another. Hold on, Jesus. You got me. I thought it was a new command. We've known to love each other forever. We haven't always done it, but we've known to do it. In fact, the only new thing about it is he says, as I have loved you. Well, how has he loved you? The command itself is very old, to love one another. Yes, that's an old command. The new part of it is this, is to serve. As I have loved you. Well, how has Jesus loved them at that point? Oftentimes when we read this, we're like, and Jesus died on the cross. But he hadn't died on the cross. This is only chapter 13 of John. You're only a little over halfway through John. He is loving them by serving them. By not walking into places and saying, that job is below me. As he's washing their feet, he says, I have a new command. I want you to love one another. I want you to love one another the way that I am loving you right now. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. In a few days, it's going to be a new year, but we have a very old command to fulfill. And it's a command that has existed for centuries before Jesus. It's new and old at the same time. Love one another. How am I going to show people that I love them? Jesus says, just do what I'm doing. Serve each other. Help one another. Be there for each other. Contact one another. Be of service when people need serving. It doesn't mean you have to wash their feet, but Jesus saw a need. He saw dirty feet. And Jesus said, there's no job that's below me. I'll wash the feet. Kind of like to Perry's story about the servers, right? When are they going to do this? And when are they going to do that? When we walk into church, you're not walking into a restaurant where you get full service. You are the servers. You see something that needs to be done, do it. It's an old command. Well, why am I going to do it? Because you love the people in this room so much, and when you see a need that needs to be addressed, you say, I'll do it. How are they going to know that I am a Christian if I do not express my love through acts of service to the community here? How will they know? And Jesus says, they won't. They won't know it. They won't know. When we have young people, sorry, this is all off the cuff. I meant for this to be a very uplifting one, but I've got something I guess I need to say. When we see young people coming in, little children, and we think, someone should step up and teach them. Yeah, somebody should. Why does someone have to get up here and beg and plead and still see no response? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do this. Or when Perry gets up here for weeks on end and says, we're moving to Idaho, because apparently they enjoy the cold. Going to get a real winter, then come back to San Diego. Now, we need some people to fill in because he leads songs every Sunday. Someone should start leading songs too. Yeah, somebody should. How are the people in this room going to know that you love them if you're not serving them? And how is the world going to know that the love of God lives within us if the only way they'll ever know it is when they see us serving? If we're not serving. Church is not a place you come to to sit and listen and leave. I'm so sorry, it's just not. It's a community, it's a family. When I walk into my house and I see dishes in the sink, I don't say, oh man, these kids should do these dishes. I wash dishes. Why? Because I'm there and I can. And sometimes they see dishes and I have to encourage them a little bit. They're teenagers. By this, everyone will know that you're my disciples. Not by the fact that you come to church. Not by the fact they say, is that so-and-so's car in the church parking lot? They must be a Christian. They're going to know it when we love one another through acts of service. That's when they're going to know it. That's how they'll know. So we have a new year, but it's an old goal. You don't need some new, exciting, fresh resolution for 2025. What you need is an old resolution that we should have done a long time ago and just haven't. It's a Happy New Year. Man, that sermon took quite a turn there. I wasn't expecting it. This is what happens when you don't have notes. It just goes however it wants to go sometimes. But I encourage you, take a look around. And when you come into church and you think, there's a need that needs to be addressed, then volunteer to address it. Be a part of that solution. The end goal is we want people to see us serving each other, loving each other, and it isn't not just leading songs and teaching a class, but helping someone cut their lawn. Right? I know how to paint. Maybe you need something painted. Not pictures, but like a house or something. Serve one another. Love each other. Help one another. Be a family. Amen? Amen. I think I'm done.